Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is Ship Updates. Now, this week of course is going to be a bit of a different week because, we got the Polaris Q&As to do, but we also got a little bit of information on RTV about the Cutlass Black. Now, of course, I had said last week the Cutlass Black, you're probably going to see that before you see the Cutlass Red and Blue. And of course, in RTV, we found out that that was in fact the case, but realistically, that wasn't that much of a leap because the Cutlass Black is the foundation of the Cutlass group, or the family of Cutlass ships. So of course, it was going to be done before the variants were finished. But just obviously, just a little bit of clarification there. Now, because of the nature of the Polaris sale, which ends on the 17th, it's kind of important to kind of go over this Polaris information. So I'm going to kind of hybridize and opinionate a little bit on the points that are being made in the Q&As. So you may not entirely agree with my opinion on this. And remember, I'm not attacking your choice to buy this ship. What I'm saying is these are possibly some things that you may want to be cognizant of before making such an investment. And even if you have already and you're committed to it, maybe these are some of the things that some of the concerns that you may want to raise with CIG in regards to this ship before it gets into production and into flight ready as is now, because I think there are some issues with this ship, and it would be, I think, in everyone's best interest if this ends up not being another Vanguard. So I am going to kind of opinionate on this show a little bit. Sorry if you don't like that, but here we go. First of all, let's put up the definition of the word versatile on the screen. That's going to become pertinent, I think, throughout this little segment here. But I think we need to kind of get that out there, get that into people's heads, because it kind of comes into conflict with the way the word versatile is used in the Q&A. So let's get the real definition of the word up there. Okay, everyone's got it. Let's get started. All right, so question 1 of the first Q&A was, does the Polaris come with snubcraft already? Can you provide a list of ships the Polaris can fit in its hold? What is the biggest ship that it can fit? Is it possible to fit 2 smaller ships like Merlins? So there are no snubcraft included with the Polaris. It is a hangar that's designed with a small fighter in mind, so anything smaller than a Sabre should fit. And I mean, in some of the artwork, we do see a Sabre kind of looking like it's flying up out of the cargo bay or out of the hangar bay. So it looks like the Sabre is probably, they're kind of going for the Sabre as the maximum, but who knows? They might go a little higher than that. The final dimensions, of course, are subject to, any design changes that need to be made, bringing the ship into full flight ready status. But 2 Merlins should be able to fit with some very precise landing. Now, for me, personal question would be, well, how many Dragonflies can you get in there? That would be, I think, a very interesting question to ask. Now, question 2. The Polaris uses torpedoes. Can you tell us how torpedo combat will work, and how will we use torpedoes in Star Citizen? Torpedoes, well, okay, so the answer is torpedoes will essentially have the same gameplay functionality as missiles, with the Retaliator being an example. But it's not a bigger Retaliator, just FYI. The main difference will be the properties of the torpedo itself. Being larger scale, you can expect it to have a lower top speed and maneuverability, but packing more damage per hit on a larger radius. Just as with missiles, the properties will vary as well, including lock time, reliability, countermeasure resistance, depending on the make and model of torpedo, along with the quality of the launching ship's avionics. Torpedoes are generally intended for use against large targets like capital ships or installations, while you could theoretically use them against a smaller ship like a fighter, bomber, or utility ship. They'd be much easier for those small ships to evade with or without the use of countermeasures. Now, that, I think, is a questionable choice, using torpedoes. Now, I kind of get what they're trying to do with this, and it seems like they're kind of saying that we don't want people to just be flying around, flinging these torpedoes in one shot, destroying people. They're kind of saying we don't want you to just say, just because my wallet's bigger, I'm king of the hill, blah, blah, blah. But torpedoes are a very limiting choice. And given the size of the torpedoes, which are apparently size 10s, and the fact that this ship only carries 28 torpedoes, yes, only carries 28 torpedoes, I think that overall this was a questionable choice for the primary armament. I think, in truth, probably it should have had some bigger turrets, and the torpedoes should have been downsized to Retaliator-sized torpedoes, so you could carry a lot more torpedoes and a greater variety of torpedoes. And I mean, especially when you're talking about their reliability, lock time, countermeasure resistance, so they can be jammed or evaded using countermeasures or jamming or whatnot. It seems like a very questionable choice for a long-range patrol ship that's supposed to be independent, but yet still only carries 28 shots for its primary weapons. So really, that's 7 volleys and you're down to nothing but harsh language and pop guns. That is one area I think that needs to be changed on this ship. All right, question 3. How long is it? The pre-sale page had it listed as 155 meters, as does the brochure, but the stats page has it listed at 130 meters. Final answer, the Polaris is 155 meters long, and the stats will be adjusted accordingly. All right, question 4. What types of ships do you intend the Polaris to be strong against? What should it be weakest against? Answer. Generally speaking, the Polaris is an ideal ship for taking on small, medium cap or sized cap ships. Tactically, it should be used to get in quick, deliver a torpedo payload, and get out. The turrets will also be utilized to fend off small fighters who attempt to make chase. The torpedoes can also inflict a significant damage against larger capital ships and provide enough firepower to crack fortifications or powerful static defenses, think sieges or base attacks. The question as to exactly how much is a matter of game balance and something that we'll be exploring together over time. It's a ship designed to and dedicated for combat, faster than larger capital ships and tougher than smaller ships, and as such, like any ship, it performs better or worse depending on whether you appreciate its characteristics and employ them accordingly. For example, the Polaris might find itself the target of torpedoes and large caliber guns, going toe-to-toe with a destroyer or a cruiser, and staying exposed to its guns for an extended period is not the best way to use this ship. On the plus side, being a capital ship, the Polaris' static defenses make it difficult to greatly harm with fighter-scale weapons. Between its shields, armor, and turrets, fighters would be hard-pressed to do it much damage, or to do much damage to a Polaris without suffering severe consequences. Okay, so it's not just me. Themselves. However, watch out for gladiators and other bombers. While the Polaris shouldn't be defenseless against those types of light bombers, a Polaris captain should be much more wary of them than dogfighters. Okay. So it kind of really doesn't define exactly what ships it would be strong against, but it's kind of saying get in, deliver your torpedoes, and then get out. Not overall, not a very versatile combat role. Possibly could the hangar be swapped out with a jamming module? Could it be used as could there be a command and control module to allow you to, take charge of a smaller fleet? It kind of doesn't really go into anything like that. It just kind of says get in, drop your torpedoes, and then get out. So where is the versatility in that design? I don't know. Now, if it had guns, then there would be some room to maneuver there, but it's got anti-fighter guns, so it can take on fighters. I don't know. All right, so moving on. Okay, question 5. Do you envision the Polaris to have any roles or uses outside of combat? You know what? I'm going to paraphrase these answers just to kind of get through this a little bit snappier. Due to its speed, the Polaris is first and foremost a military ship. So basically, it can carry cargo, but it's mainly used to protect cargo ships and to protect the resources of the people who are employing it. It's not strictly meant as a cargo vessel. It's meant more as a weapon of war and kind of used to, as a point of influence to say, hey, I've got a bigger fleet than you, so you got to kind of do the thing that I want you to do type shit. So it really kind of looks like this is just a combat ship, and they're kind of making that point over and over and over again. It's just a combat ship, but it's versatile. All right, question 6. How viable will it be to run a Polaris with an solo or with an AI crew? Oh my God. Why are people still asking this question? So basically the answer is it is possible to, I guess, run it with a very minimal crew, but the more people you have, the better off you're going to be. Short answer, you will have to make friends on the internet and to fly this ship. Otherwise, it's probably going to be embarrassingly lame to fly this ship. So no, you cannot solo this ship or fly it with an entirely AI crew. And I mean, just think about it. No matter how advanced you think that the game's AI is going to be, do you ever think that like the AI is going to be able to make viable tactical choices without your direct input continuously in a combat scenario? I mean, do you ever think that it's just going to take upon itself, oh, I know what to do here? No, you're going to have to manually direct them and tell them what to do. I mean, remember that when people in video games say AI, it's not real AI. It's not real artificial intelligence. It's not something that sits there and goes, you know what I'd rather be doing right now is reading a book or studying Latin. No, it's not any kind of intelligence. It's just a list of possible choices and how to make them, and it's very limited. You know, this isn't like a creative, self-aware intelligence that can make intelligent choices. No, it's just, it has a preset, this is what you do in this situation, this is what you do in that situation, and there are very few situations that you can actually define for it that would actually work. So, in short, stop asking for this because it's never going to happen. All right, question 7. Can the Polaris land like the Idris? If so, is it capable of carrying and deploying a rover? The Polaris can indeed land. Of course, we've seen the landing struts on it, but of course, you could say, well, it can land on a platform in space, but can it land on a planet? That's a good question, and yes, it can land on a planet. There are no plans to include a rover with the Polaris, but that might change in the future. So, something to think about. All right, question 8. Why are there so many crew positions? What is there to do on a Polaris when you're not the person flying it? Well, obviously, there's a lot of systems to operate. Weapons, sensors, all shields, engineering, all these things that you have to do. Torpedoes, you got to have a guy in your torpedo bay. And the reason why there's so many crew stations is because this is a ship that has a 24-hour cycle, so you got to have all the people to fill all the positions for all the various ships during a 24-hour day. So, various shifts, rather, in a 24-hour, day cycle. So that's why there are so many crew stations on the Polaris. All right, question 9. The shields listed for the Idris and the Javelin read capital, while the shields for the Polaris are listed as large. Can you explain the difference and why the Polaris has large versus capital shields? Well, it's a trade-off relative to the speed and the firepower of the Polaris. It's basically something to balance it out. It is, it's not by any means fixed, but it is kind of the way that they are going with this. Now, this is obviously something that they could easily change if it is warranted, but in general, it's basically because it's a fast, like high firepower ship, which that in and of itself is a bit of a question mark as well, and that's why it's got large shields, as kind of basically for balancing reasons. Now, that's a value that they could easily change, so we'll have to wait and see just how viable that speed is over larger ships. Kind of a wait and see thing, but in that instance, I think they kind of made the right choice there, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, question 10 is, can we land in the hangar without raising the platform and vice versa? When landing on the hangar platform, will the pilot have to match the Polaris's current speed in order to not be crushed? Will it be possible to take off while the ship is moving? So apparently, yes, it is possible to do, but it would be kind of a risky maneuver. So you would kind of want to slow the ship down or stop it to launch the fighter. Though I kind of think I would want to try an in-motion landing at least. A takeoff, probably not so much, but to land while in motion, I think that would be pretty cool. That would be something I'd like to try. But that is the first 10 questions from part 1 of the Polaris Q&A. So let's move on to part 2. Okay, so part 2, question 1. If I wanted to use the Polaris to haul cargo, can I use the hangar bay for that? What about swapping out torpedoes for additional cargo space? And if so, how much cargo do you anticipate I can fit in all the space available to me? So the torpedo bay is non-modular and will not be replaceable. So that's it. The torpedoes, you can't take them out. You can't put cargo in there, as the ship's main purpose is to bring firepower, of course. Strictly speaking, you can put whatever you want inside the hangar bay as long as you can make it fit, but the issue you may run into is a lack of cargo plates. So basically, you can't really secure the cargo down. So if you open up the hangar bay, the cargo could float away into space. I mean, especially if you raise up the platform, then the cargo could just float off into space, and that probably wouldn't be a good idea. But then again, I mean, if you got a fighter in there, then you need some kind of system to kind of fix that fighter to the ground. Otherwise, every time you take off, the fighter could just slide around on the floor. So, I mean, that would kind of make it more versatile of a ship if you could do that, but I don't know. All right, question 2. The other 2 capital class ships, like the Idris and the Javelin, being the other 2 capital class ships, come with an Argo. Will the Polaris come with an Argo? There are no plans to include an Argo at present, which is to say, if you complain about it enough on the forums, we might just throw one in for you. Question 3. What do you mean when you refer to the Polaris as being versatile? The Polaris will be versatile in the way that you will be able to use it for things such as strike missions, search and rescue, and general patrol. But in addition to this, the cargo facilities will allow movement of haulage, and the hangar essentially will allow you to carry a range of different smaller ships or ship to areas outside of their usual reach. Yes. Okay. All right. Question 4. Since the Polaris is intended to be a self-sustaining combat platform and capable of extended deployment without resupply, does it have a medical facility or a captain's quarters? Yes, it does have a captain's quarters. It also has a secondary quarters, which can be used to either house the pilot or the second in command, and also has a small medical bay And there is, I believe, also going to be there's also going to be a brig and an armory on there as well, I believe. Oh, and in addition, the Polaris has capacity for a large stockpile of 24 torpedoes plus 4 already loaded in the tubes, I guess, as a self-sustaining combat platform. That's not a lot of ammunition. I'm just putting this out there. You go with Retaliator-sized torpedoes, you can probably get a whole lot more in there, and you're probably spending less money per shot. That's a lot more versatile of an armament than, those capital-sized torpedoes. That was kind of, I think that was kind of maybe a game-balancing choice that they made. And they were kind of like, oh, you know what, if we make them spend a lot of money every time they shoot the guns, then they'll have to think twice about shooting each other with them. But truth is, I mean, everything that you are going to end up shooting those at has got to make you money. And that's not a very versatile weapon system, and that's not a lot of ammunition to carry in the first place. I mean, that's 7 shots. That's 7 volleys out of your torpedo tubes before you're completely out of ammunition. Not really a self-sustaining combat platform. All right, let's move on. Question 5. What makes the Polaris more than just a better Retaliator? Well, the ability to carry another ship in its hangar is the obvious one, plus the support for the whole crew, along with the ability to carry cargo without the need of a module. It's so, in effect, it is just a better Retaliator. I mean, that's pretty much what you're saying. That's pretty much, it can be used for mission-related supplies such as spacesuits, ammunition, repair. So basically, it's just a bigger, better Retaliator. Yes, it is. It is a bigger, better Retaliator. All right, how modular is the ship? Sorry, what is this? Question 6? Question 7? I'm thinking, how modular is the ship? Can the torpedo hangar and cargo bays be replaced? And if so, with what? No, they cannot. Because the ship is versatile. Oh my God. Okay. Question 7. What can you tell us about the cockpit view? It appears to be obstructed, yes it does, in much the same manner as the Constellation. What is the reasoning for this? The cockpit glass is essentially a callback to other RSI ships, basically a signature style. While the struts are present, the overall size of the glass coverage will allow great wide-angle views for the bridge and turret crews. Except that a lot of the bridge crew is sitting further back in the cockpit, so they actually have kind of that limited forward space to view through. So, not really. Kind of a design choice. Kind of a bad one. Question 8. Does the Polaris carry any fixed weaponry? There is conflicting data between the ship page, the matrix, and the brochure about how many turrets are manned and unmanned, fixed hardpoints, etc. The current weaponry of the loadout is 4 size 10 torpedoes, 6 times manned turrets, 1 remote operated turret on the nose, which should probably be a lot bigger, and 1 automated lower rear turret, which should actually be placed on top of the cockpit and be made the same size as the one underneath. Apologies for any confusion. If there are discrepancies on the site, we will adjust them. Yeah, so the unmanned turrets are a discrepancy that should probably be like a size 6 and have like some decent chunky weaponry on that to give you some versatility in combat, not just torpedoes. And, I don't know, the anti-air turrets or the anti-fighter turrets, they seem to be pretty much where they need to be, but, once again, we'll have to wait into the future to really see that. But, yeah, those automated turrets kind of need to be upsized, my friends. Question 9. Could we fully repair and refill any ship that fits inside the hangar bay? Okay, so the answer is refill and restocking will be an option. And to some degree, repair is possible. The hangar is enough room for technicians. So basically limited repairs, and you should be able to refuel and restock your ship, but the repairs will be limited. It's not going to be like the repair ship, and the name just dropped out of my head, so I'm just going to call it the repair ship for now. But yeah, so the Crucible, sorry, there it is, the Crucible. So it's not going to be a full-on Crucible, but it should be probably about enough to get you up and going and get you to somewhere where you can get proper repairs. Question 10. Will the Polaris have any other rooms not shown on the layout? The rooms not listed on the brochure include an armory, a med bay, brig, captain's quarters, and a secondary quarters for the fighter pilot or second in command. Now, you really are going to need private quarters for the second in command. I mean, especially if you had like Commander Riker as your second in command, because you know that dude is a hound, and straight up he's going to need his own quarters unless you want him putting on a show. So yeah. So that's actually pretty cool. Captain and I guess first officer get their own quarters. Armory, med bay, and brig. That's pretty damn cool. That's good. And just, you know, the weapons, man. The weapons have got to be changed. Got to be changed. My final opinion is this. At its core, it is a good ship with good possibilities. The problem is the weapon systems are really terrible. Those turrets need to be changed. The automated turrets need to be upsized and moved to the front of the ship, one on top, one on the bottom. And the torpedoes need to be downsized so that you can carry more of them, and that you can't just use those to go around, you know, crushing big slow ships like, say, like a Hull E or something like that. Would probably be extremely vulnerable to a system like that. And, you know, kind of take them down in size, speed them up a little bit, maybe. Well, you know, let's just wait and see how the torpedoes work in combat. But that would be my knee-jerk reaction, is like downsize those torpedoes, upsize those guns, and give people some more options. That's actually what the word versatile means. And then being able to swap out the hangar bay for like a command and control module or like an ECM module, that also would be versatile. So that in the end is my opinion. At its foundation, at its core, there is a lot of possibility here, and there's a good ship here. The problem is that the weaponry and some of the options are very limiting, and possibly the word versatile doesn't mean what CIG thinks it means. Anyways, that has been an extended ship updates this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.